I'm Hero,
I'm Chris.
and this is Fork Bomb. Monday, June 24th, 2019. 24th? Wait, are we in the future? We're in the future. Where did I get 24th from? That's the other Monday. Let's go back in time. All right, here we go. Monday, June 17th, 2019. Episode 26, Experimenting with FreeDOS. How are you, Chris?
I'm well, Euro. And how are you?
Good. I heard you had a productive day, and I didn't have such a productive day in terms of actual work. But I did get to learn a lot, so that's good. I'm learning, AWS just because I want to. And then I'll go back to my Splunkety-Splunk world, which I enjoy. So yeah, not bad.
Splunkety-Splunk.
Splunkety-Splunk. Yeah. Actually, on my briefcase, yes, I have a briefcase. On my luggage, I put the logo. It's like a little sticker that they gave me, that Splunk gave me. It's of a unicorn. Actually, it's more like whatever. It's like a little donkey. Doesn't matter. You know what it is? It's a pony. It's a pony, and its name is Buttercup, and it has rainbows and stuff all around it. And anyway, so I put that on my luggage So whenever I travel, like to Russia or whatever, they're gonna see this like flaming unicorn with rainbows, and it's a pony. It's a pony. So, yep. Anyway, so it's great, and I like having it. All right.
I am jealous of that, but we are here to talk about FreeDOS.
Yes,
which is an open source alternative to the MS-DOS operating system.
So, as the wiki site actually mentions, yes, it is free. I had to think about that for a little bit. I know that we had used FreeDOS before. We were experimenting with it. I think you used it way more than I have. But in the very beginning, I didn't know there was a free version of DOS. I thought we were stuck with MS-DOS and then Dr. DOS and all that. But no, there is an open source solution to DOS,
and not only is it open source, it's still actively maintained.
Yeah, that's freaking amazing. That's just awesome. To even just have that. I can't wait till DOS takes over the world.
One task at a time.
Yes, one task at a time.
So We've covered similar things like this, open source re-implementations of proprietary operating systems, and this one is no exception. It has no actual Microsoft code in it. It is truly open source. And things that we've tested in the past that are similar to this are ReactOS, which is an open source re-implementation of Windows NT, which worked horribly. Haiku, which is an open source re-implementation of BOS, which worked pretty great. And also in the vein of working pretty great is this, FreeDOS. Things work very, very well with it. Granted, it's a much more limited operating system, much more fully understood, but it's still impressive nonetheless.
Well, you know what? It's the features that they've added to it that really, makes it stand out, in my opinion. Not just that it's open source, that's great, it's fantastic. Go open source. But also all the features that they've added to it that just makes it so much better than what we originally had with DOS. I do have to point out that at the time of this episode, version 1.2 is out, and that's actually what we tested on. I believe 1.3 release candidate 1 was recently released, so there's that. I'm sure it'll come out, and you guys listening in the future, bear with us. We have 1.2, which is still a great and stable OS. So yeah, why don't we start a little bit with the history?
Well,
we usually start with the history.
Sure. Before we do that, I wanted to mention the open source license that it's under. It is licensed under the GNU public license, or the GPL, which is the same one that Linux and many other open source projects uses. Having a hard time finding which version of the GPL, but yeah, the history.
Yeah. So the history. And thanks for sharing that. I know that that will be relevant in one of these bullet points about the GPL. So FreeDOS started out in 1994 after Microsoft announced it wouldn't support MS-DOS any longer. Jim Hall, a student at the time, wrote a manifesto proposing the development of PD-DOS, a public domain version of DOS. A few weeks later, programmers Pat Villani, man, I hope I'm not killing your last name, Pat.
Villani?
Let's do villainy. and Tim Norman joined the project. The kernel was written by Villainy. I'm just going to say it like that, Pat. I know you probably hate it, but yeah. What are the chances you're listening to this? Hopefully very high. By Villainy, the command line interpreter by both Pat Villani and Tim Norman. The core utilities by Jim Hall were created by pulling code they had written or found available. Since then, FreeDOS has had multiple releases, and you know what? Actually, it was kind of interesting to compile all the releases together because there were so many alphas of FreeDOS and then betas, and I mean it's been in development since 1994. We're in 2019 and we're on version 1.2, which means that there has been a lot of not full releases out there. So, and it's not from lack of them not releasing anything. It's just, a lot of alphas and betas, which is fine.
But they wrote an operating system from the ground up.
Yes, which is great. I mean, I want to write a manifesto of something and then just have it, turn out to be something real. Yes, go ahead.
I mean, you can have the whole history if you want. I'll gladly give it to you.
We can paper, rock, scissors it. I can't see you. Whatever. Here we go. FreeDOS started as PD-DOS back in June of 1994. What's wrong with me in my writing? It's just I'm like Sir Lancelot here. June of 1994. But quickly changed. This podcast is going nowhere.
Your sound card works perfectly.
Works perfectly. More work. All right. I can't do history. How about you do history?
Sure. In 1994, when Microsoft announced it would no longer support MS-DOS, and Jim Hall went, "Oh no!" he decided, "I'm going to start my own. I'm going to call it PD-DOS." And that was quickly changed to. Quickly changed it not to. You write weird, Giro.
Wait, what are you reading?
FreeDOS started as PD-DOS back in June of 1994, but quickly changed its not to FreeDOS in July. His name. Okay.
Keep going with it.
In 1994, FreeDOS was started as PD-DOS, but quickly changed its name to FreeDOS in July of that year, and then later to FreeDOS with no hyphen in January of 1996. They released an alpha distribution in September 16th of 1994, with alpha builds being released until March of 1998, so 4 years of alpha builds. FreeDOS wouldn't leave the beta stage until September 3rd of 2006, so that's another 8 years until its FreeDOS 1.0 release. I'm going to leave the rest of the history to you because I am really enjoying the way you read it.
Oh man, yeah, and I haven't been drinking. Wow, you know what? I don't even know how I wrote this. FreeDOS 1.1 was released on January 2nd of 2012 and 1.2 on December 25th of 2016. As of this writing, as I mentioned before, FreeDOS 1.3 release candidate 1 is available. Some things that I found really interesting on the history was that it's interesting that HP desktops in China and Dells were being offered with FreeDOS as far back as Beta 9. I mean, Beta software and PCs are, Dells and HPs coming with FreeDOS installed, and Beta nonetheless. That's just amazing, and that also tells you that speaks to the stability of the operating system. They wouldn't load operating systems that have bugs, and even though it was considered beta, still it must have been solid enough for them to go out there and release it. Not only that, but don't they have to support it? I mean, if they're releasing an operating system with their machines, I assume that they had to support it as well. So
one would think. What also speaks to its stability is DR-DOS violated the GPL by wholesale ripping off GPL programs from FreeDOS without including the source code.
Yeah, that's a big no-no. And so while they were pulled from the shelves, FreeDOS was still going, I guess at that point dominating market. So that pretty interesting for the stability and testament of the FreeDOS kind.
So we've gone over a little bit of history, but like to point out that it's DOS. It runs like DOS. It runs all your DOS programs. You can use all your DOS drivers. With rare exception, it does everything that MS-DOS does, and it's backwards compatible to MS-DOS 3.0, I believe. So yeah. It's really impressive what they pulled off, but it's better than DOS. And I like to read a list from their wiki titled "What Makes FreeDOS Better."
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
All your DOS are belong to us. Okay.
All your DOS are belong to DOS?
All your DOS are belong to us. Us. Oh. Okay.
So what makes FreeDOS better? This is a long list. Here we go. You can multi-boot with Windows, including Windows 95 up to Windows 2003, Windows Server 2003, Windows NT, Windows XP, or Windows ME. You get the FreeCom command line shell. So I know you're a big fan of FreeDOS, but FreeCom has some of the features like tab completion and up and down history, command history traversal, without all of the other fancy features of FreeDOS. It includes disk compression utilities like 7-zip and InfoZip, so you can zip and unzip file archives. It comes with a graphical web browser called Arachne, which is also an email client. It's not a very good graphical web browser. I mean, it's in DOS, but it works.
It works.
It has its own CD-ROM driver support with XCD-ROM and SHSU-CDX, similar to MSCDEX, but it allows you to do other features like mount ISO files as a drive letter, which is something
and not play Redbook audio. Oh yeah, continue.
Which is something that we're used to doing in more modern operating systems, but again, you can do it in DOS. The downside to that is it does not support CD audio, so you'll find yourself quickly replacing it with MSCDEX. It comes with the Qt mouse driver with scroll wheel support pre-installed, so scroll wheel support in DOS. I guess a program would have to be set up to actually use it, though. Edit and set edit multi-window text editors. FAT32 file system support, which means you can use larger drives with it. FD-APM power management, which supports APM info console suspend and power off, ACPI throttling, and HLT energy saving. A virus scanner called FDAV, didn't test it. Gonna save my favorite one for last. Graphics prints to Escape/P, HP PCL, and PostScript printers. HTML help viewer, its own memory manager called GEM386, which supports XMS and EMS. 32-bit protected mode drivers as JMLs or GEM loadable modules. LBA cache disk cache, LBA large disk support, LFN support via DOS LFN driver. probably one of my favorite audio players, MPX Play, which supports MP3 files, OGG files, WMV files, AAC files, so many modern file formats, and is internet capable. I use it to stream digitally imported radio almost daily on my DOS machine.
That's awesome.
Just because I can.
Just because you can.
The PG disk viewer, several utilities ported from Linux thanks to DJGPP. I must say I love running Vim under DOS. UDMA drivers for hard disk and DVD drives, XDMA and XDVD, and my favorite, the FDN PKG package manager, which is a network-capable program installer and configurator. So instead of having to, it runs very much like Linux's, like Debian's apt-get or Red Hat's Yum. You type in FDN PKG, install the name of the program. It downloads it. It sets it up and installs it and makes it so you can run it. You can update your entire DOS system in place from the internet. And this is on an operating system that does not have a TCP/IP stack by default.
Yeah, I also ran it and I really enjoyed using it. I found games on there. I found applications. It was fantastic. You do have to get TCP going. So you're going to need an IP address and everything. But once you have that, you're fully able to use this app. To me, it reminded me of something like kind of like apt-get, I guess.
Yeah.
And that you could upgrade and things like that and install the application. So absolutely, that was also my favorite part of the software that came with FreeDOS. Another thing that I really liked was the a utility called FDimples, FDIMPLES, which is another great utility that comes with FreeDOS and allows you to install a wide range of applications, tons of developer tools. I installed BASIC, I installed C++, I think even Pascal was in there. Tons of different editors, games, you name it, and it all came in the ISO. It's just it's sort of like a package manager. So, however, I think that you're absolutely right. That FDN PKG, that is just that's just the best, really. Anybody could write their software, put it up on their repository, and that I don't know if that you would call that a repository, would you? I guess it's just a directory.
It's a repository, for sure.
Repository.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then download it.
You could
installs and everything.
I bet if we dug into it, we could probably figure out how to set up our own FDNPKG repository and set up FreeDOS to use it. In fact, I might do that because I know there are some programs that I would like to see in their repository that isn't in there. So having my own would be fun.
Yep, sounds good.
Not only, what was I going to go with that? Nope, the thought's gone. After you.
All right. Well, thanks for that, Chris. It does have a ton of applications that you can install. A lot of this stuff, need I mention that a lot of this stuff was written by users for FreeDOS. I mean, it was, wait, am I saying that wrong? It was, you get what I'm trying to say though, right? It was made by users from scratch. It was made specifically for FreeDOS, but you can run this stuff in DOS since it's completely DOS compatible.
Oh, you're saying that you can use the FreeDOS utilities under proprietary DOS, under MS-DOS. So yeah, you can go and install FDNPKG on MS-DOS and do the same thing. So
you're probably, I mean, I know you're not wondering, but people are probably wondering why did they make it compatible with DOS 3 and not DOS 6.22?
Good question, people.
Good question. I'm glad you asked, Chris. So that's to maintain full compatibility with DOS. They even wanted to make it compatible all the way down to, I think they mentioned 8088, the IBM XT and machines like that. So to maintain full compatibility with the older machines, that's why they made it compatible with DOS, or they made it code compatible to DOS 3. Although you can still use features like the enhanced 386 mode, things like that.
So why if everything that runs on FreeDOS can run on proprietary DOS. Would I want to use FreeDOS?
Well, it's open source, so you'll be supporting the open source community. From the many things that you mentioned that FreeDOS comes with, FAT32 is one of them. That means large disk support.
That is
Although
nice.
I know DOS 6 also supports it. DOS 7, I think, had a whole FDisk application that would also support FAT32, but this also includes it.
DOS 6 was FAT16 only, so you had to do 2 gigabyte partitions.
Okay, so DOS 7, whatever came with Windows 95, OSR2, something like that.
Right.
They had an FDisk utility that also supported, large disks, but yeah, so they're not DOS 62. It does also support for newer hardware. It has support for newer hardware. Still maintained today, so they could provide fixes to whatever you're having issues with. There's a community out there. There's forums that you can that you can ask questions in and things like that. Offer enhancement requests and etc. Well, you'll have an easier time to use it out of the box. It already includes a lot of the drivers and helper scripts to get going faster.
Yeah, it had a nifty little network helper setup script.
That's right. Yep. And FDimples has a whole network stack that you can select, and it'll pre-install it for you. And if you're lucky enough to have a network card that is fully compatible, like we did, it'll just work, really. So DHCP, things like that stuff will just work using the I don't remember if it was using the MTCP stack.
MTCP, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
And also, if you have problems, you can fix it yourself if you have the know-how, because the source code is available.
Yep. So now we have blah, blah, blah. Let's see here. So another reason why you would want to run this, why you would want to run FreeDOS, is you still have software that requires DOS, but you don't want to use an abandoned OS to run it on. So you don't want to run it on an OS that is no longer supported. And that's where you would use FreeDOS for.
Speaking of having a project that runs DOS but not wanting to use an abandoned OS, there are some projects that do use FreeDOS specifically for that. And in fact, it's used for more smaller embedded utilities. For example, Intel's solid-state firmware update tool, solid-state disk drive firmware update tool, loads the FreeDOS kernel. Steve Gibson's SpinRite uses FreeDOS. There's a floppy-enhanced DivX universal player called FedUp that uses FreeDOS. Mm-hmm. A program called Fuzoma, which can boot from a floppy disk and converts older computers into educational tools for children. I had to look at that. I'm strangely curious about that one.
Edutainment month.
Yes.
That's what Clinton would say.
Yes, definitely. Oh, we should, if he hasn't mentioned that, we should send him a tweet or something to see if he would have any interest in talking about it.
Yeah.
And XFDOS, which is a FreeDOS-based distribution with a graphical user environment that ports NanoX and the FLTK graphical toolkit.
Oh, that thing is wild. Yeah, we actually tried it on VirtualBox. And it's like using it's kind of like a primitive version of Windows 95. And I say primitive only because it's pretty much full-blown, but, the driver support and everything on that. I didn't get to test the whole thing. But I do know that it's single task, so it's kind of weird. It's like using Windows, but it's not multitasking, so the application opens up and it full screens immediately, and it's not like you can minimize or anything like that. But hey, it's really impressive. I mean, it looks like you're using Windows, but you're actually using DOS. So, yeah, I thought that was really neat and a really neat project. I do hope that they continue building that and making it better and better. So besides that, FreeDOS uses FreeDOS as well. which replaces a regular command line interface. It supports tab filing and completion. You mentioned some of this stuff, with the other app. Forgot the name of it already. Not FreeDOS, but the other one. But yeah, more powerful batch file scripting and uses less memory. I actually use FreeDOS really for that tab completion. It's just so convenient, and just pushing up and down to get the list of commands and things like that. To me, it's a must. So using DOS now without FreeDOS, I just feel really weird. I need FreeDOS installed.
Well, the one that it defaults to has just those features and
just
nothing
that.
else. So you don't even have to bother with FreeDOS or with FreeDOS.
With FreeDOS, yeah. I might have to check the other one out.
I kind of want to counter for how many times we say the word DOS.
People will drink to this. Okay, here we go again. FreeDOS includes wide selection of programs which can extend DOS functionality, and you already gave the really long list, so I won't really go through it. We do have a list of features. Do you want to go over the features?
Yeah, some of this overlaps. I know I've been jumping around, but the installer is really nice. With fdimples is very similar to when you install a Linux-based distribution where it gives you a selection of packages. Do you want to install development tools? Do you want to install multimedia tools? Do you want to install text editing tools? So it makes that really easy. If it already detects that you have FreeDOS installed, it'll take you to an A prompt instead of running the full installer. It'll ask you if you want to back up your files before installing it if it detects any existing FreeDOS installation.
All right, wait. That part right there was really interesting because, all right, I made an experiment, okay, for the sake of science. And I installed FreeDOS, and then I installed Windows 98. And then I installed FreeDOS on top of Windows 98, hoping to get the best balance of everything. And, not only did I not do that, but every time it asked me if I wanted to back up my entire partition, which was my existing directories, my operating system, and I thought that was really neat. That hey, how considerate for it to ask if I want to back up. I mean, I remember installing MS DOS before, and it wouldn't ask me that. So
right.
So yeah, it was just really neat. That every time it would ask me that and say, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Like, yes, I'm sure. I want to screw up my computer. And then you know what? After all of that, I never really screwed anything up. What I did was I ended up just installing FreeDOS, and then I installed Windows 98, and then I just installed FreeDOS on top of Windows 98. Nothing broke. It's just replaced. So I thought that was really neat because if you do that with Windows a few times, I know you're bound to break something.
And it won't ask you if you want to back up. It'll just say, you want to do this? You want to do this? All right, Leroy Jenkins.
That was me. No backups. All right.
The rest we covered. I would like to address the SHSUCDX CD-ROM driver again. That is really neat for playing games where it is not a multi-session CD that has CD-ROM audio as the soundtrack. It's really neat to be able to save your ISO files on the disk and mount them as a drive letter.
That is really awesome and incredibly powerful. I mean, at that point, you don't really need a CD drive,
Plus, you can also it can also make ISO files from your physical disk directly on the DOS machine.
Yeah, awesome. Again, you could just have a directory of ISOs and just load them up. I mean, that's great. I don't know if DOSBox uses some version of this. I should probably look that up. Because I know that in DOSBox you can load ISO files as well, so I'm just wondering.
Whatever DOSBox has is certainly more advanced because you can even mount multi-session bin.q files in DOSBox.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think they might have their own thing.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? One thing that I wanted to point out was the DOS long file name. It's pre-installed, but I couldn't get it to work.
Yeah, it's there, but it's commented out in the config. I couldn't get it to work either. But based on what we So we both like the idea of having long file names in DOS, but it seems like even if we did get it working, whichever programs we use would have to be set up to know about that feature and be written to use that feature. So it wouldn't make legacy applications be able to work with it.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is
just
a
stick
shame.
to the 8 characters, But yeah, stick to the 8 characters and you'll be fine. One thing that I did note when I was installing FreeDOS on my machine on bare metal, I actually ran into that invalid opcode error, and it would just repeat and repeat and repeat. So good thing I was able to go online and find somebody that pretty much had a quick fix for that. And that's basically, to fix that, you just had to add raw to the startup command line, kernel command line. So you hit tab, and then there's going to be a string there, and you're just going to add raw to the end of where it says kernel module, something like that. And then that's it, and then it'll run just fine. You won't get that invalid opcode error. But yeah, when I first tried to install it, I would continuously get that invalid opcode, and I got frustrated because I thought perhaps my computer wasn't compatible with FreeDOS. And then how can it be? It's compatible with every DOS. What's going on? But yeah, found that quick fix, and thank you to whoever wrote that on the internets.
What did you install FreeDOS on?
On Pentium 3 700. So it was it's a Dell T700, something like that. Dell Dimension T700R. There you go.
Nice. I installed it on a compact Presario. Hang on, let me get the model number. Compact Presario 5204, which is an AMD K62 450 megahertz processor.
And you didn't have that invalid opcode error?
Nope.
Huh. I wonder what the Pentiums had. I'm guessing this is an Intel thing. I don't know. Another issue, and these are just, they're not, I wouldn't say they're huge issues. They all have fixes. They're fine. But I just thought I'd point it out since, we ran into these things while installing. So another quote-unquote issue that I ran into was my network packet driver was not added when installing the network stack from FDimples. I know. Before I said if you install it and you have the right network card, and it just so happens that mine was supported. Well, I had a tiny little bit of an issue there, but it wasn't anything crazy. I just had to load some other DOS drivers as well. So I can't remember the exact steps that I took to do that, but it wasn't anything crazy, and probably it was my mistake anyway, from having to do that. I just had to reload network drivers to get it to work right. But again, I really think that was probably my fault more than anything else. But figured I'd point it out.
Nice.
Another item, Sound Blaster 16 drivers. Okay, so I installed the Sound Blaster 16 because I have an OZ64, but when you install it from the CD, you get the SB16 directory. So I wanted to install so I can get the MIDI sound and all that stuff, and which, really looking at it now, I didn't really need to do that since it does include all those other programs. But anyway, so I wanted to do it anyway. I installed the SB16 drivers, and they didn't work for me right away. I needed to go into the AutoExec bat file and actually change the placement of where CTCM, since I'm using an OZ64 card, it uses CTCM. I had to just move it up a few lines. I think it was right before it loads EMM386. No, right after it loads EMM386, I had to add that line there. So basically, I just moved it from one part to another. I didn't have to, write anything new or anything like that. But afterwards, after I've moved that there, CTCM loaded just fine. Before that, it just wasn't loaded. It was placed later on in the AutoExec bat file. For some reason, it had an issue loading. But again, nothing hard, and it took just one try. And that's about it, really.
I would like to talk briefly about their expanded memory manager, GemX or Gem386. And neither of us were really able to figure out how it differs from other tools like it or other memory managers like it. mainly because we don't have the tech chops to fully understand it. But I can say that when it works great, and you will never run into an out of memory issue. You run mem, and you're always you're never running into the 640K memory issue. It's very good with memory management. But the downside is a lot of programs are not compatible with it. Thankfully, they give you a startup menu option to switch memory managers to something that is more compatible with older applications. For example, Descent just will not run with GemX.
And that is a requirement for us. It needs to run Descent. One of the interesting things about FreeDOS, by the way, is that it's tested by running Doom. You know, if they can't run Doom, then that's it. so yeah, that is something that they mentioned was one of their tests. So very cool.
I did try installing Windows 3.1 on it. I got it running, but it was very unstable. I had to switch to the EMM386 command line option. And I got it running, but then if I would try to run any DOS application inside of Windows, I would get some random ass error that I didn't fully understand and did not dig into it. I tried to get sound drivers working under Windows 3.1. I wasn't able to, I think partially because I'm coming to the realization I've never really dealt with drivers in Windows 3.1. So I don't know if it was a problem with FreeDOS or a problem with just how I was doing it. But I was pretty sure I got the config sys and autoexec.bat options right. And no matter what I did, I just could not get any audio drivers working. And if I played around for too long, Windows 3.1 would just crash and burn. So I think I'm definitely going to be doing a just plain vanilla MS-DOS 6.22 and Windows 3.1 setup just for the experience of learning how to set that up.
3.11 would be even better because you get the yeah.
True, because I've only ever done DOS is fine. That's easy. Anything past Windows 95, piece of cake. Linux all day long. Windows 3.1, no clue.
Yeah, it's not too bad. And 3.11 gives you the network stack and a few other goodies. So definitely Windows for workgroups is what you're going to want. And, one interesting thing, you mentioned EMM386 and this is with MS-DOS. I have an MS-DOS disk and by disk I mean hard disk, the clickety one, not the cool SD cards. And by the way, thanks Chris for giving me that SD to IDE board. That's great, that little converter, and I will be using it. But for this particular test, I used the regular spinning disks, and I actually have one for Windows 98 and MS-DOS. Every time I go into MS-DOS mode there, or even if I just boot into MS-DOS, I don't even use Windows, and I type in anything like dir to get a directory or anything like that, I get an out of memory error. And the only way that I can get a full directory listing or anything like that is I have to actually type in MEM to get the memory count, and then I can type in dir and things like that. And it's still like that to this day. I have no idea why I have to run MEM first, and then I can run the rest.
Weird.
But yeah, one of those mysteries. And I haven't really wanted to fix it because I kind of like it. It's like, wow, that's so crazy. You just have to run. And what does MEM do? Does it free up anything? Does it do? All I thought was just reporting how much conventional memory you have, how much upper memory you have. That's all it's doing. It's just reporting. So why does it need it in order for it to print out the dir command? I don't get it. But yeah.
I did not encounter that.
Yeah. So I haven't fixed it. I think it's kind of cool, and I want to leave it like that. That's pretty much all I have to say about FreeDOS.
Do you think you'll keep using it?
I think that I will go back to it when other versions are released in order to see what the improvements have been. But at this moment, I'm going to continue using my Windows 98, hard drive disk. since a lot of our games and stuff are on there. That's what we're playing. But yeah, I mean, I'll go back and to test out different versions, 1.3, 1.4, whenever it comes out, and whatever. I don't know if that's going to be in a decade or something. We'll probably have 1.3 and a lot of different betas of that, which is fine. But yeah, I'm excited for FreeDOS 2 whenever that is out, and yeah, so I want to see the evolution of FreeDOS.
1.2 came out not too long ago, so 1.3 might not be far behind. Seems like they've accelerated a bit.
It seems so, yeah.
For me, I'm definitely going to keep using it. I've been using it for years, off and on. But once I got this retro rig going, and I just could not keep Windows 98 alive because for some reason it just keeps getting stuck into MS-DOS mode. I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna keep OneDrive with FreeDOS just for my DOS games, and OneDrive with Windows just for Windows games with Windows 98 and Windows games. And DOS games that do not want to run well under FreeDOS. So I figured the less I use Windows 98, the longer it'll run. And most of my gaming is DOS gaming anyways.
May I suggest Windows Millennium?
No. The best version.
Disgust. That's pretty much all I have for FreeDOS.
Same here.
Yeah, it was fun researching it, and like I said, I'd like to check out the evolution of FreeDOS, and I want to know what it turns into eventually.
It's always going to be DOS. They're never going to go 32-bit support. They're always going to strive for full DOS compatibility.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder if there'll ever be like a fork of a FreeDOS or maybe there already is. We just focused on FreeDOS. That'll only be 32-bit, and then you'll have a crazy 64-bit DOS that'll support 128 gigs of RAM and more.
I hope they call it Fork DOS.
Fork DOS. Then they'll have the Fork DOS podcast. Yeah. So, and they'll have two guys. One named Chris and another one named Dollar. Anyway, all right. That's it. That's all I have.
Same. Well, it's been fun. Been real.
Yep. All right. Well, you guys have fun. Is that the first time I've ever said that? You guys have fun? Is that my closing? Wow. That's terrible. That's whatever. That's my closing.
It is what it is now.
Bye.
Night.